How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great,
That's
thank you.
really great. So the role of Gustavo Fring is very complex. He is one of the most interesting villain characters on modern television. How did you prepare for this difficult role?
I made some choice decisions. When I read the script, one of the lines that really appealed to me was about a man hiding in plain sight, and I started to think about how many people do I know who have double lives and are hiding in plain sight. And I started there. I was really inspired by the writing of him. I had been a waiter for a lot of years in a restaurant, and I love the fact that we assume that he's just the manager of this chicken restaurant and that he really underneath is someone else. So I started to layer all of these ideas behind that and hoping that they would catch on, and they were inspired by what I was doing and asked me to come back, and it blew up from there.
Literally blew up from there. What do you look for when you're reading a script before accepting a role?
I look for a complete story. I truly do. As an actor and many actors, they get a script and they flip through the pages and they look to see how much they're in it.
Right.
And for me, as I grew as an actor, I wanted to see what was being said, what was being represented by the whole film, by the whole project, what was the message. And so I looked, specifically with Breaking Bad, at this journey of Walter White, and I really related to it at a time in America where people were floundering and having a hard time feeding their families.
Absolutely.
And one man who's sick and possibly going to die soon really has a good intention
Yes.
of trying to leave something behind, and it turns into the bad intention of greed and money and drugs and all the things he gets involved in to sort of capture and possess his good intention. It all goes awry. And I was fascinated with that particular story and that message. Some of us get lost in pursuing one thing for a good reason, and it turns into something really bad.
Right, yeah. I feel that's something that's very timely as well in the economic distress, as you said earlier. And I think that's what draws a lot of people into watching Breaking Bad, is the fact that it's this guy who's just like an average guy, and he gets wrapped up in all of this just with good intentions. And I like that you choose it for the story and not just for, this character is interesting and I'll get a lot of exposure if I do this.
Exactly. For me, after it's been 48 years in the business, and I realized that I don't want to be the best thing in a bad show. I want to be commensurate and equal to actors that challenge me and writers that challenge me.
Absolutely.
It's really important for my own growth. And I'm not looking for the economic remuneration of just being rich from something I do. Some people are, and they get that. But
which is great for them.
It's great. You have to call a spade because then your intention is clear. I just want to be a star and make a lot of money. I don't. And that's okay. That's because that's what you're calling up and what you're asking for. But I've always asked to go deeper and to really continue to develop my craft.
Right.
And there's not a day that I'm on set where I don't learn something.
That's very important. If you're learning wherever you're working, that's definitely something that'll keep you busy and keep you happy when you're there.
Absolutely.
So have another question about Breaking Bad. Do you think Gus is a prudent businessman despite his obvious flaws, or is he just evil?
I think he's a prudent businessman. And it capped itself in 401, where I just thought he did this despicable thing in the box cutter episode, and then I realized it and went back. We had been away for a long time on hiatus after the last episode of season 3.
I remember that time. That was a stressful time.
Yeah, everyone was waiting for the show to come back. And I had to go back and start to think about the last parts of season 3 and what actually happened, and all of a sudden the light bulb went off. The whole reason he does this is not for revenge or to send a message, it's because the family was compromised. Now, you realize at the end of season 3, we realize he not only has 17 Pollos Hermanos restaurants, chicken restaurants all across the country, but and the trucks and all that stuff that's going, and the meth that's going on the trucks, but he also has the laundry. And there are all these regular people who work for him. And as exemplified by the scene where he's teaching the guy how to cook chicken, he's back there.
Yeah, I feel like people really overlook the fact that Gus is so into what he's doing. He's not just a meth distributor. I mean, that's obviously where he makes his money and that's where he develops his craft. But he's also just he's trying to get by and trying to help these people also get by, and he has different methods than most of us do.
That's right.
But he has this family aspect. There's a line in an episode where he is actually speaking to Walt. He's cooking dinner for him. And he actually says, my kids don't eat the fish like this. And that confused a lot of fans because they were not grasping that Gus was at the core a family man.
Exactly.
What is your take on that line?
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, I agree. They asked me for photos of my own children. And they said they may not see them clearly, but
Right.
it gave them the opening to be able to see Gus's family, which is I was hoping they would. The first time we were ever in his house, it really was to me illuminating.
Yes.
Not only for me but for the audience, that he is a family man, that he is, and he has a bigger family of business people, but that he's very exacting and very prudent and very caring.
Right, yeah.
About people. So I adopted the thought that he wants to bring people to their best selves. It's like when you have children, you want to give them great advice.
Right.
And so it didn't matter that he was selling meth. It's like selling shoes or ties or whatever. He's going to be successful at it.
Right.
It's just a business. And he did it well. And then that's his line to Walt. We're not alike. You're not careful.
Right.
You're not on your business. That saying we have today about being on your business.
Absolutely.
I mean, I truly believe that, and that's how I try to get my work done as a filmmaker and an actor. What you do today determines your tomorrow. Like what you do today. So we all have to, sometimes you get in life and you have to, I work as an actor and I work on a show called Revolution, but I'm also a director. And so every day I take time to further my directing career, whether it's just 10 minutes. Make a phone call, read a script, do my notes on a script that I want to direct. You do something every day. So what you do today determines your tomorrow.
Right.
The truth.
I think that's great advice. So you just mentioned that you work on a show called Revolution. Can you tell me a little bit of background information on that show?
Yeah, it's a show about 15 years into the future where we are faced with no power in the U.S. at all. And so there's no power whatsoever.
That's not too far off, I feel.
I don't think so. If we don't start and continue to cultivate some other means of powering us up outside of oil, we're going to have this problem. And so the infrastructure of America falls apart and militias take rise, and we have a world that is controlled by certain groups of people. In our second season, we have the government, the U.S. government, having fled America to Guantanamo, coming back and trying to take over again. So we start to realize that all of what has happened in season one has been manipulated by the government, who wants to destroy and then recreate. What do we do with war? We destroy countries, and then we send business in to build it up again, and it's all about money.
That's
greed.
very much what I feel is happening right now as well. We're destroying a lot of these countries, and then we're trying to build them right back up, and we're doing it through money. We're not doing it through true infrastructure and stuff like that. So I'm very interested in that kind of show. Like, that sounds really interesting.
We call it a post-apocalyptic show, but it really is a show about family trying to find each other across this desperate landscape as well.
Yeah. So it sounds like you do a lot of social commentary in your work, like Do the Right Thing, obviously. It was very much about race relations of that time. Revolution, it sounds like, has a lot of social commentary in it as well, in terms of destruction and how greed can cause more destruction. What kind of social commentary do you feel came out of Breaking Bad, if any, having to do with the meth distribution industry?
Well, I did the show partly because I had met two young Mormon boys on their journey through the U.S. on their bicycles, spreading the good news and religious news. And then I read an article 5 years after meeting the two boys I met about Mormon boys who got lost in the Midwest and got into meth, and I was shocked. I thought, that's a movie in itself, Then these boys eventually got found and sent back home. And then I started to really look at the parts of the country where these underground meth labs are, and people blowing themselves up trying to home make meth and do all these things for a drug. Some do it for money, others do it because they're hooked. And then I started to look at the photographs of people before and after, and what a short period of time it took for them to devastate their bodies and die. And I thought, this is just wild.
Absolutely.
How does this happen? And we in our big cities don't know that much about it. And so partly why I took the show was to be a part of that. The other commentary about the show is about a man who is dying and wants to leave something to his family, i.e. money, and has to break bad in order to do that. So it made me think about America. In my time, I know I've been through a couple of different downturns and been through the mill. And I realized that, I have a talent and I have a career. I remember my 8th grade school teacher telling me, because I went bankrupt, and she said to me, "Oh, Giancarlo," she said, "why did you have so many children?" I have 4 kids. Like, that's old school. It's like, no one has 4 kids anymore.
Like a farm family.
Yeah. And I had to think about her words, and she said, "I fear you're never going to recover." You're never going to recover. And, I had hope and faith, but I also said to her, I said, well, I'm in a business where it's feast or famine, and I've been in famine. And feast will come, and I'll recover.
Right,
And I have to be more careful about how I deal with my money, and I'll have to be more careful about what I'm doing. But if there's one business that I would be in, find myself in, that could have the ability, it's the one I'm in.
Yes,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean? Because before the first years ago, before the advent of the big huge star, Schwarzenegger was getting $20 million a movie, and Sam gets 18, 20 million. Sam Jackson.
Right.
There was the character actor, and I was up toward $250,000 per movie. Now, granted, I would get one movie at that price a year, but that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then it went away. Then all my offers were
Like,
scale
what do you
plus
do?
10 or take it or leave it. And that's when everything went downhill. But I always realized that there's the ability for me to recreate myself as an actor or director and have the ability to pay everybody back and recover from this.
Yeah.
But I'm one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, absolutely. My family has a saying where we say that life will provide for you. If you're in a hard time, it's not going to happen right away. It may not always happen the way that you want it to, but life will provide for you.
Yeah, and you also have to work for it. It's really important to realize, like I say, do something every single day to realize your goal. It's not, and the universe feels that too.
Right.
Wow, she's really working for it. Then it will come. It's undeniable that it will come. It's
Right.
when you're looking at your shoes and you're thinking that's not going to happen, and you get in that depressed mode, that it doesn't happen. But it is up to us because we've been given the tools to be able to find it.
Right, yeah, I would agree with that. So we're going to wrap it up, but thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for being here. We've
My
been speaking to
pleasure.
Giancarlo Esposito.
Yes.
He's famous for Breaking Bad, and he's also in Revolution. He is making some films. He is a really awesome guy, awesome to talk to. Thank you so much for being
What
here.
a pleasure. Thanks for a great interview.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. You're welcome.